Welcome to the Women Who Change the World podcast, the place where everyday women world changers share their stories to inspire, challenge, and equip you to change your world. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Women Who Change the World. I am your host, Samantha, and I am here with my friend Maribel, and we're going to talk about values that matter.
Yeah. Hi, everybody.
We've already been talking for a while. We're like, we got to record this. You guys need to hear what we're saying. Values are the foundation for everything. Values are your core values are decisions of, or why you make the decisions you make. They're why you do the things you do. Even though, you know, and this is just where it is, and of explaining why this is so important. We've got a storm coming through here and my head is hurting, and Maribel's not been getting a lot of sleep, working third shift at Amazon. But we're both like, we've got to get this recorded. This has to get done. And so no matter how tired either one of us are, we know that we're going to feed off each other's energy, and we're going to be good, and we're going to give you guys what is important. And this value that they tell us is listening. For me, it's active listening, because listening can be what did you say? That's not listening, people. That is not listening. So there's a quote we get: the most basic of all human needs is the need to understand and be understood. The best way to understand people is to listen to them. That's Ralph Nichols.
The first time I read this quote, I was just mentioning to you earlier that this was the first value we presented when we went to do Dominicana Se Transforma. And when I read this quote, I was like, wow, this says it all. We all want to be understood. We all want to understand and be understood. But in order for that to take place, we have to understand the value in listening, the power in listening completely. And it's like you said, it's active listening, meaning you're there 100%. So this quote, it really impacted me a lot.
I participate in our weekly Change Your World tables that we do with other John Maxwell team members. And one of the people who was in my table just got back from Tupelo, Mississippi. Mm-hmm. So this is the first time that the John Maxwell, our Maxwell leadership team, is doing this in the United States. And so he talked about different things, the impact, but one of the things he said that was a big impact for him is that his team and the people that were part of his team, they went to a restaurant across the hotel and sat in a booth and just had a conversation. They were just listening to each other and having a conversation. And so when we do our tables, we're all in Zoom, but we go into a breakout room, do our table, and then we come back. As we're coming back, before he's even back, one of the people that was at that booth with him was talking about how that booth and him listening to them was so impactful. And Dr. Bruce pops in and he's just beaming, and another woman who was there with him, was in the big Zoom, and they were just beaming, and they were so, you know, that beaming look of a parent of, I just had a new baby.
Yeah.
That's what these people had. And the thing is, when I met you at the IMC in March, there was a difference in you in talking to people and you talking to people who you had been to the Dominican Republic with. Your body language changed. Their body language changed. It wasn't rude. It was just like, oh, you're one of my people. You're one of my people. You know what I feel. You were there. You saw it. You felt it yourself. And that whole thing was like, I want a piece of that.
The experience.
I want a piece of that. So yes.
And it's so beautiful. Like you said, the experience, they just finished Tupelo. And then what you saw there recently on your transformation table on Friday, the energy and how they impact each other, right? And And then also comparing to how you saw myself on the IMC with the coaches that I went to Dominican Republic with me, and the way we interacted, it was like, because it's transformational.
It
This
is.
transformation table worked. They're like the best thing. And the most beautiful of it, it's free. All you're going to invest is your time. So it's beautiful.
Well, an interesting thing, one of those people, I think her name was Jasmine, she was talking about how they went to a beauty school. She's talking about, and immediately I'm thinking about you. And they're like getting people to volunteer to come do it at a table. And so this girl, Bella, after a while, was like, okay, I'll do it. So she goes up to the front, not knowing what was going to go on. And she'd heard her mother's voice in her head as she was going up. But I'll tell you that part later.
Okay.
So they do the table. And they're asking her, they're talking about the different things. And one of the things that she talks about is how she was a smoker for 12 years.
Mm-hmm.
And she hasn't been smoking since the new year. So after the table, she's very emotional. She leaves. Jasmine goes after her. And what she heard in her head as she was walking up was her mother telling her, one day, your story of being a smoker and quitting, you're going to share that and it's going to impact lives.
Mm-hmm.
And so Jasmine's like, she was sobbing, Bella was sobbing, they were both sobbing and hugging. And once these other people saw that, one, it wasn't painful. It's like trying new food in front of your kids to let them know you're not going to die of poisoning.
Yeah.
That it wasn't painful. All the people wanted to learn how to do this now. And that's what you guys do when you go do these trips, is you're training people to facilitate these tables to other people. Right. So you do somewhat of a table, training them how to do it, and then it spreads on. It's the law of multiplication. Yeah. But the big thing is, you have to have hope or else you wouldn't be going.
Yeah.
But when you're there, you have to listen. How well we listen can greatly influence our relationships and our ability to succeed. One of the first things that I highlighted, boom, in the paper. Because it matters. Mm-hmm. It matters. Part of the story of how Maribel and I met, my daughter Audrey and I had a room for the IMC. Dawn, our friend Dawn, was like, can I room with you? And I said, sure. And we had space for one more. And Dawn and Maribel had met at the Dominican Republic.
Correct.
And so funny how all this worked out. I'm registering for my room, like introvert, head down like a horse with the ciders on, not paying attention. And over to my right here, Samantha, is that you? And I'm looking at you going, I don't know anybody here except for Dawn. Who are you? And she's like, it's Maribel. She was listening in on the conversation, heard just enough that it was like, boom. And from that point on, we have been talking to each other at least once, if not twice a week. We have become very, very good friends. Yeah. But we both have this desire. You, as a former and soon to be, once again, beautician, have this desire to listen. I love to listen to people's stories. And so we have this connection, and sometimes we bring each other hope. Sometimes with a smack, sometimes with a kick, sometimes with a hug. But these values are in both of us. Yeah. And so we push into each other and lean into each other to help each other. And that is what doing a table can do for you. There's a connection that you get with your people at your table that you won't get outside of it. Yeah.
And the beautiful part of it is the content. Like when you're reading the content, it's just like so valuable. Because when we're doing the transformation table, we read the content, right? And we're supposed to highlight something that that connected with us, right? But there's so many things that I just want to highlight it all because the content, it speaks value. Uh-huh. It has so much good value in it that you just want to hide everything all the content in it is just so important. It's
Yes.
amazing.
One of the things that I found is like, I mean, I've got it highlighted of things that I think are important, and I've done more each time I've done a table. But the thing that stuck out to me was, steps to follow. The fourth step is to ask questions. And it says, paraphrase or summarize the other person's thoughts to show that you are listening and to make sure that you truly understand their perspective. I've been doing that for a long time. I just didn't realize it. Because especially as a parent with older children, they will say something to me, and sometimes not so nice ways. And I'll say, let me repeat back to you what I heard. And they're like, oh, no, I didn't mean it that way. Okay. So then they tell me again. I'm like, let me repeat back to you what I heard. Like, no, that's not what I meant. So doing that has opened a door of communication with my own children. My 9, 7, and 5-year-old, they don't need it that much. But my 16, 18, 22, and 24-year-old, and even my husband, they need me. This is what I heard you say. That's not what I meant to say. Okay, well, let's try this again. But having that repeated back to them, one, shows that I'm listening. And two, it tells them, this is how your words impacted me. And I love you. And there are other people who won't. And your words will impact an even harsher way to them.
Yeah.
So not only is it me listening to them, me helping them with their communication with me, but helping them with their communication with others.
Correct.
And so it is modeling. It's modeling.
It's like as a single parent, and I think I'm a multi-purpose. I do multiple things. There was a point in my life that I wasn't really connecting with my kids. And when I read this, I was like, that's what was happening at that moment, because I was able to correct it. I mean, I'm grateful that I was able to correct it. And unconsciously, it's something that happens very often with many people because we have so much information in our hands. So the third paragraph, the best kind of listening requires us to set aside internal and external distractions so that we can listen without judgment or interruptions. In order to listen at this level, we have to be emotionally and mentally invested in the conversation.
Yes.
This, again, I wanted it. There was a point in my life that I wasn't connecting with my kids, but it was because I wasn't listening to them. They will come to me and I will work, and you can't.
Nope.
It's either you drop what you're doing and you fully give them all the focus and attention so you can understand what's going on, or you could tell them, can you just give me a minute, let me finish what I'm doing, and then I'll give you all my attention. And that's something that I started practicing and doing. But when I read this, I was like, oh my God, this is so true, because I lived it.
Yeah.
Now my communication with my kids, it's a different level.
Right.
And even from them, when they have their own moments, like my son has a couple of days that he plays, and when I want to come in and tell him something, it's he tells me, he's like, can you just wait until I finish this, whatever he's doing? Or he stops and he completely turn over where I'm at and gives me his full, So I was like, wow, this is so impactful. It's so important, because when you invest emotionally and mentally in the conversation, active listening comes in place.
Yes. Well, before we had hit record, Maribel was talking to me, and I got an Instagram message, and there was enough wording in there. It was like, ooh, alarming. Check the message, send a response, I'll talk to you more when I'm done, because I have a podcast to do. It acknowledged the person that I was speaking to, that I'm here, I want to listen to you, but I can't do it at this moment. And then I came back and told her what was going on, and we were both like, oh yeah. But it was an acknowledgement of communication, because I had two distinct things going on. And like right now, my phone is turned away from me and the notifications are turned off. My family knows exactly what I'm doing. And in this virtual world that we live in since COVID, this kind of thing happens all the time. Before all of this, my main communication with my husband was through text or through Messenger, because I didn't know if he was in a meeting or if he was in the bathroom or if he was, I didn't know what he was doing. And so if it wasn't, life and death situation, I need you to come home, the house is flooding or something crazy like that, it was just a message. But he also knew that if I called him on the phone, it doesn't matter who he's talking to, he needs to step away and come take the phone call, because it's something serious.
Urgent.
But having those key things of communication like you'd have with your kids, not only do you feel respected, but they feel respected.
Correct.
And if they know mom's going to listen, why am I going to go talk to somebody else? Because I've got mom over here who loves me, who cares about me, and she's going to listen. So when we get to that point where we're like, okay, yeah, and you go back to what you're doing because you really didn't care what they had to say.
Yeah, they feel it.
They feel it, and you are building a wall between you and them. It is, when we listen effectively, we can improve our ability to connect and to understand the people that we interact with in our day-to-day lives. It's what you're talking about. It's why we have no cell phones at our table. First off, I've got little kids. Somebody's going to spill something. And if your cell phone gets destroyed, your fault, not mine.
Mine's.
My husband and I will have ours near the table because we have older parents and grandparents. And so if that phone rings, we're going to look at it. I have had 1, 2, 3, 4 major phone calls happen during a mealtime for family. So that's why we keep it near, but it's not, nobody's looking at their cell phone.
Yeah.
Even when my husband and I go out on a date, we have our cell phones on the table face down. Because we both know the kids can contact us. They're sitting there, but it's not in front of us.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, I love my cell phone. It is one of the biggest things that I think have caused the breakdown in not communicating to somebody, but somebody listening to you communicate.
It's a distraction.
It is.
It's a big distraction. And if you don't know how to control that distraction, it will control you. And it's so important, especially family meals.
Yes.
The tables. Because that's where all the value starts. That's where all the respect starts.
Yes.
In the table. And it's like you said, nowadays, we barely have house phone. So yes, if you have elderly parents, so that it's going to come on a case of an emergency, you keep it to the side in a distance. But you're not constantly there, You're fully and committed to the table and the dinner and the most valuable, which is family time.
Now, this is not to slam parents who have a little child and you're eating out and the parents are trying to have a conversation and you hand the child something to distract them so you can have the conversation. Not slamming any parents.
No, we went through that too.
Yes, but we were pre those things, so we understand why you do it.
Yeah.
It's just there's a time and place for everything. That's really what it comes down to.
Yes.
So one of the things that we have been talking about is what specific action can you take immediately that will improve your writing? As in listening. And I had talked about when I ran a table with my family, I said, you have to sit and listen to the most annoying person without comment, except to ask a question. And so we were both chuckling about that. But one of the things that it says is wisdom is earned through the continuous time and energy that we invest in listening, learning, observing, and understanding. Listening is my jam. This is my thing. I love this. I love listening to other people's stories. Partly I blame my mother because the name Samantha means listener. So I have that. But you, Maribel, have a trade that even though I don't know if you take a class to do this, but it is what we think of when we think of somebody who works magic with our hair. You were one of the first people everybody looked for after lockdown. It's like, oh my goodness, I need to see the person to fix my hair. So you do that in your salon.
Yeah.
But you told me an interesting story about the other day, how it's like people see you and they're like, bing, she will listen to me. You have a sign on you that says, I will listen to everything.
I'm a listener. It's
so
interesting because even when I was behind the chair, I've always kind of asked myself, why do I get to kind of get all the stories? Like, it's just like, but yes, I one day a client did tell me, Maribel, you're a very good listener. When doing hair or within anything else, and they expressed that I was a good listener. But it's so interesting that I was telling you, I'm going through a process and I do work nighttime at Amazon. And I don't know, I consider myself the light and the salt. So we usually get to break, and on my second break, I usually like just to be on my zone. I sit by myself. I like to write things down, plan what I'm going to do in the week, or just go over my schedule, whatever it is, taking advantage of time. So last night, 4 people came by just to talk to me randomly. So I listened, but actually 5. But the last person is a gentleman who everybody hates in the warehouse. Everybody's always saying something negative about this person. And I'm just hearing things. I'm not pointing out. I'm just hearing what's going on. And I try to go as positive as I am everywhere I go. And this gentleman came and talked to me. Hey, Missy. And I say hi. And he just opened up. He just opened up and started telling me a couple of things. He was going to transfer from the department that I am to another department that he used to love. And I asked him, so why you not there no more? I start asking questions. And by me asking the questions, we went to the main point. And he was let go from that department because he was going through a process. He lost his child and he couldn't understand many things. And a couple of comments went through and he wasn't able to express his pain. So instead, anger took place and all that good stuff. But the beauty of it was that he just wanted it to be listened. He just wanted to find somebody to listen to him so he could express, I don't have my daughter no more. I don't see her face no more. I miss her. But nobody was understanding him because we're so busy and we don't listen when sometimes just listening to somebody could make an impact and a difference in their faces. So towards the end, when we were getting close to leave, he smiled. He was like, Missy, I'll see you next time. So his attitude was different. And everything was because he finds somebody that was willing to listen to the pain that he was going through by losing his child.
You said you could even see it in the body language. His body language changed.
Yeah. So then I was, as a woman of faith, I was like, this is all you, God.
Mm-hmm.
This is all your work. But it's so beautiful when you just, like you said at the beginning, just quietly and listen and just ask questions. And the questions it's gonna drive the conversation where it needs to go, or
Mm-hmm.
help that other person where it needs the help at. Maybe he just needed it to let it out. Maybe he just needed it to let those feelings out, that he missed her, that he doesn't have pictures of her no more. And that freed him of holding himself, because another thing that I noticed, when he came, he was like, oh man, and little by little his shoulders start coming down and relaxing, and now he's moving his arm around. I
Yeah.
was like, whoa. So it's very beautiful just to put this value into action when it needs to be put into action.
And it's not just people you like that need to be heard. Honestly,
Mm-hmm.
the people who rub you the wrong way the most, they're the ones who want to be and need to be heard the
Yeah.
most. And it's hard.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I did that, I actually had to go, if I'm facilitating this table, I need to go do the homework I gave to everybody else. And oh my goodness, listen to that person just go on. And I knew the answers. I'm like, I know how to fix your life. You just need to shut up and listen to me. But I didn't. I just sat there and I listened and I asked questions. It's hard when somebody is so grating to give them this very, very basic human need. And honestly, when you look at the 6 values that that we teach, plus the values that are taught in the Dominican Republic and in other places, they're all basic needs.
Yeah.
This isn't anything huge. This isn't anything huge. Before I hit record on my podcast, I have a 10-15 minute conversation with the person I'm going to talk to.
Mm-hmm.
Because, got to get the jitters out, got to have a conversation, got to, they need to be heard that this is scary for me.
Yeah.
And they need to hear from me that I'm here with you. I'm not going to leave you. We're going to walk through this together. And by having that exchange, by the time they're done, they're like, oh, wow. There are 2 people that after doing an interview with me now run their own podcast. They're like, oh, I could do this.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you can. So me listening in and leaning in does that. But I will tell you, there are times at the IMC, oh my goodness, there's lots of people there. This place is huge. And as we pulled up, Audrey and I were both like, people. The introvert knows they're going, people. But it wasn't just that Maribel and I shared a room, but she listened to me about why this was so hard to be surrounded by so many people. Not including the fact that we had to walk a half a mile from our room to the conference.
Every day.
Twice a day. And that's if you went there and stayed and didn't come back until the evening. If you came back, my husband measured it because they have a map and we measured it. It's like, that's a half a mile each way. So it's having someone who listens to you without the judgment that says, oh girl, I know, we're like, maybe we need like a tractor beam, or like beam me up Scotty, maybe beam me up Chris, maybe to the other side of the place.
Yeah.
But those kinds of things, having someone who listens to you and isn't going to judge you,
Mm-hmm.
it makes a difference.
Mm-hmm.
It really, really does. And if you don't apply it anywhere else, please, I beg you, apply it with your children.
Yeah. Yes. Because my relationship with my kids today, I wouldn't trade it for nothing in this world.
Mm-hmm.
Especially the process I'm going through. And I need them as they need me. And what get us to the point where we need to get is clear conversation and listening to each other very well. And if there's something that we don't understand, ask. I'm sorry, I didn't get that well. What is it that you want me to accomplish with that? So adding this value to your family, your kids, it's so rewarding that you will walk anywhere you want to walk with joy, because there's so much peace in your place called home, which I always consider it's my temple.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so it's very important. And also transformation table, it's I consider it more of it's a personal growth process, right? You apply it in your personal life, but you also apply it in your career or corporate or whatever you do outside your personal life. And it's something that all it's going to do is add value to who you are.
Oh yeah.
And just become that easy river that, gets things done and listen, but also would like to be heard. But because you give it first, you get it back. Which you give listening first. Then when you want to speak, you're going to be heard because you gave it first.
Yes.
So that's
especially with our kids.
Yes. I am a proof living mom of that.
It says people who demonstrate these values of listening display certain characteristics. These people are disciplined listeners. They consciously choose to speak less and listen more. I remember my teacher in school saying, God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth. Listen twice as much as you talk. So that, but the other thing is that if you have not read it, I would suggest listening to it, because it's one of those books that just, for me, I need to listen to it. Dale Carnegie's book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. So he's at a party, and there's this guy off by himself. And I think the person hosting the party was a close friend or relative of Dale's. So he goes over to this guy and he asks some questions. Well, this guy just keeps talking and talking and talking and talking and talking the entire time that this guy and Dale are together. And so Dale's like, I gotta leave. It was nice to meet you. So he leaves, saying goodbye to his host before he leaves. The man goes over to the host and says, he was such a great conversationalist. So the host tells Dale that, and Dale's like, but I didn't say anything. So if you want to be remembered, being remembered as somebody who listens is a good way to be remembered. But the second one is these people are eager to learn. They continually look for opportunity to grow in every situation and every conversation. I want to take a twist to this. There are times where, as a Christian, I'm struggling with a concept. It's like, I don't understand it. Why? What are you telling me, God? Why can't I get this? And sometimes it happens in a conversation. Sometimes it's something somebody revealed in vulnerability, or something that they've learned, or something that they're dealing with. And it was like, oh, that's it. That's the thing that I've been missing. God uses them to teach you something, which is what I want this podcast to do. I want this podcast to be a place where you're listening. You're like, oh, I didn't think about that. No wonder my kids don't listen to me. I don't listen to them. That aha moment is God speaking through people around you that you're listening to. So those two things, out of the 5, because the number 5 is that it develops close relationships with home and work, and we've talked about that. The 3rd and 4th one is about you're seeking the truth and not a viewpoint. When I did this with my kids, my youngest one at the time said, Mom, it's like the angel in Veggie Tales in Josh and the Big Wall. And so I'm looking at him going, what are you talking about? Well, I'm just going to describe it how he described it. So they're getting ready to attack Jericho, and Joshua goes away, and an angel shows up. Of course, it's, the asparagus dude. It's Joshua, who is Larry Boyd. He's a cucumber, not a pickle. He's a cucumber, which he had said many times. I'm a cucumber. He sees the angel of the Lord. He falls face down. Of course, how he is a cucumber is going to get back up, I don't know. But he says, whose side are you on? And the angel said, neither. But as commander of the Lord's army, he wasn't on sides. He was on the side of truth. So someone who is listening, if you're mediating a conversation, especially as a parent between kids, you got to listen to both sides, not just one. Digging for the truth. While painful, not gonna lie, whether you're in the workforce or you're at home, it is extremely painful because somebody, no matter who, somebody's gonna get mad because you didn't, quote, pick their side.
Yep.
But they are going to see that the next time something comes around, you're still actively listening. You're still going after the truth. It's not this person's your favorite. You're going after the truth. And that will impact you in the long run, whether it's a parent or a boss or a leader or whatever you're doing. You have to be willing to listen for truth and to listen to all sides and pull it together.
Yeah. And that, when you're, again, because I agree with you, you're actively listening and you get to listen to both sides, that actually is going to take you to the truth, which is what you're there for. And it's like you said, especially when there's inconveniences with kids.
It's hard. Neither one of us are going to tell you, oh, this is the key to make parenting easier. No. There's no easy way to parent, period. Except to not parent. Just, and by that I mean just not have kids. Another one that I like down here in these steps to follow is to stop what you're doing, make eye contact, and fully engage. We talked about that. And I'm going to tell you a dirty secret here for me. I used to be able to, when I was, 20 years ago, I used to be able to type and listen to somebody talking to me and keep typing and have a conversation at the same time. At this point in time in my life, my brain cannot handle so many inputs. So I will stop what I'm doing. I mean, I could be cleaning. This past week, we emptied out my pantry and my refrigerator. I bought these cool containers and everything is organized and music was blaring. But if somebody wanted to tell me something, I had to pause the music because I can't hear the music and them at the same time. Old person's brain. But this last one, avoid the temptation to think about what you're going to say next. I'm going to tell you, this one burns me. I'd rather you be on your cell phone not listening to me than to do this one right here.
My father, it's a huge model of this one. My father's such a great listener. Like, he does not say things just to say things. Like, as soon as you read this one, because I was going to mention it, avoid the temptations to think about what you're going to say next. As soon as you mentioned it, I was like, she's covering it. Because every time I read this follow-up step, the person that comes to my mind, it's my father. He fully engaged when he's speaking, when you're speaking with him. He fully engaged. and you don't see him trying to think to say something. If he doesn't have the answer, he'll tell you, I'll get back to you on that.
Yeah. It doing that, or trying to add a post-it note. Since Maribel and I both do tables, we're like taking notes and putting it in with our papers.
I know, I did it with the books too. I write it right here.
So we're doing that. We're adding notes to what we have. That's why we're both not commenting about the other person busy with our papers, because we know what we're doing. There's another side of this though, that, okay, you just did it. If somebody says something to you, you need to pause long enough to say, uh-huh, or yeah, or some form of verbal acknowledgement. Because if somebody says something and then you immediately start talking, you didn't even acknowledge that person spoke.
Yep.
So that person doesn't hear you. You know, if you're face to face, you're nodding your head. There's this verbal, physical cues that happen that here in the U.S. we consider common courtesy. It's I hear you. I've acknowledged that you have spoken to me. So when somebody is already thinking about what they're going to say to me, the first time they do that, if it's somebody I've already talked to about this problem, I'm like, we're done. I'm done talking to you. No, I'm like, no, I'm done. I'm done. I do not spend my energy on people who are being rude, unless you're going to pay me. You know this. Sorry.
No, I was like, they're actually not listening. So why keep adding to it? You know, if they're not actively, I love it. I change minds too. It's actively listening now.
Well, listening is a verb. Okay. Yeah. He listened. I listened. You listen. He was listening. They are verbs. And so active is just reaffirming that this is what I am doing in that moment. I am actively listening. I'm not listening and doing this. Now, I will tell you, if I'm got my headphones on and I'm listening to a book, she's showing me her notes that she's writing down. If I'm listening to a book, I can crochet and listen to a book. I can color and listen to a book. I have a couple of books that I'm listening to, but I also have the physical book at the same time. I can listen to them read it to me while I'm reading it myself and highlighting and writing in my book. My children, we have reading night at nights. They'll listen. Some of them have this simple game they play on their phone. I don't care. It uses two different parts of their brain. Some of them play with toys. Some of them color. Some of them, they're doing other things. That's fine. You can do those things while listening. And I have found, especially for my children, if they're doing something with their hands while they're listening, they listen better. They hear more and they remember more. But this whole thing of, you can do all those others. You know, you can listen with an open mind. You can stop what you're doing and make eye contact, fully engage, listen objectively, and ask questions. But that fifth one, if you do that, that's like saying, I agree with you, but, and that word but wipes out everything beforehand. If you do not do this last one, to avoid the temptation to think about what you're going to say next, you didn't do the other four, really.
Yeah.
And you've cut off a conversation and potentially a relationship.
Yep.
And that's when I go back and forth between 4 and 5 of, if I'm saying something next, I'm asking a question. You can go back and forth between 4 and 5. If you're going to say something, it better be a question.
Yeah.
Clarify this for me, or what about this, or how did that work out, or what do you think about that 4 and 5 can go back and forth. Because if you're asking a question, it means you are listening.
Yeah.
Unless you're talking about something really important and you say, is it supposed to snow tomorrow? That's not listening.
Yeah.
And so help me, if we get snow in May, I might cry.
Me too. It's Especially that I'm traveling next week, going to Dominicana se transforma.
Then you're like, I don't care if it snows because I'm leaving.
No, then I won't be able to travel.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
They'll delay my flights and all that good stuff.
Oh, yeah, I didn't even think about that.
But yeah, that, you know, I'll be going back again to the Dominican Republic to the transformation table and just even doing it on my, like I do it when I feel myself in need to remind myself a certain value. Like on Friday, I did hope because I really needed it to kind of get into that. Just review the content, and just evaluate myself in the last couple of weeks. How am I with that value? So just, you know, sometimes people be like, but it's listening. I listen. Listen, I get it. You think you're listening, but are you actively listening to whomever's speaking to you? That's what makes the difference.
Here is the key for me. I don't care if you think you're listening. If I don't feel like you have listened to me, then you've not listened.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Listening is not about the person who is listening. Listening is about the person who is speaking. They have to feel heard. My 18-year-old son is pretty severely on the autism spectrum. And he'll talk about the same thing over and over and over again. And he will keep talking about it until you stop and listen to him. But one of the things that he does, he loves this game called Samba de Amigos, where he's got these maracas and you're supposed to do these certain hand and foot movements. And he loves this game. It's like one of his things. He loves this game. And so we can be in the middle of a discussion, me and, you know, my oldest kids and my husband, and he'll come in the room and he'll strike a pose. Like in the middle of the living room, between everybody, he'll strike a pose. And if you tell him to move, he's going to ignore you. But if you acknowledge him, I see you. What song is that from? Really? Is that your favorite song? Even my son, who deals with autism, wants to be seen and heard. And sometimes hearing isn't just verbal conversation. It's one of the reasons why when I record my podcast, it's video. I see the person I'm talking to. Now, I don't put the video out there because I don't want people to think you have to be dressed up formally. And I'm like, no, I'm in a t-shirt and no, there's no makeup on my face.
And my hair is not done.
Look, we're, you know, some days we're lucky we, you know, function after dealing with kids all day.
Yeah.
But I do this for a reason. Because one of the things that I talk about with each person is what their pain point is. Tell me your story. Tell me your pain. And I ask questions. And so I'm watching that person as I'm talking to them. And I know when I'm pushing too close to their point. And so I'll back away. So I want to throw that out there as my last comment. Listening is not just with your ears.
Yeah.
Listening is with your eyes. Listening is about body language.
Right.
You need to notice all of those things when you're talking to somebody. Because if you don't, you're going to miss some very, very important cues. So,
Definitely agree with you on that.
Anything else you want to throw out there?
No, I really enjoy this value. I guess because again, it's something that I naturally do, but it just enriches me so much every time I read the content. So I really, really enjoyed it a lot, and I hope the audience too gets to enjoy it and get some value from it. And and hopefully we'll get some audience to participate in our transformation table, which is it's invited to everybody.
Yes. And it's free.
Correct.
This is not, there is, okay, you may ask, how can this help you with your business? Well, there is someone that we both know. His name is Chris Powell. And this is Chris's focus. His focus is just doing these transformation tables for free. And then somebody's like, wow, you're really good. Could you help me with blog? Could you lead a mastermind? Would you coach me? Would you? All of these things are leading from the free stuff that we do. Now, we're not doing this for free because we want to build our business.
Correct.
In fact, John Maxwell, we have a list of rules, and it's like, you are not allowed to charge for a transformation table ever. John Maxwell, who is our founder, says that. Mark Cole, who's the CEO and president, says no. Chris Robinson, who is the executive vice president, they're like, no, you cannot charge for this. This is part of our mission. This is part of what we do. And I've had people say, yeah, well, you know, it's not going to help your business in the long run. Okay. If you're joining the John Maxwell team, yes, you want a business. Everybody in the team wants to make money.
Correct.
But the next value we're going to talk about, which is adding value to people, is part of the reason that we signed up with John Maxwell instead of other companies.
Right.
It's because valuing people is important to us.
Yep.
So,
and like you said, you know, people might think, how is this going to add value to your business? The transformation table, it's a mission. And when you like to help people, I love to help people. But adding this type of value to people's lives where they could put it into action in their personal lives and in their work life, it's like there's no words to explain like how grateful just to see the results at the end. And eventually, yes, other type of services that we might do will come in place, but the enjoyment of just adding value to people and just seeing the dynamics in their faces is just priceless.
well, and even, okay, I could come on and just talk about these values myself. I can do that. But you and I having a conversation about them, I learn from listening to you. It's like, oh, I didn't think about it that way. That's why we both got Post-it notes of sticking it in there. You know, as part of the John Maxwell, or the Maxwell leadership team, we have the opportunity to participate in tables with other people who are part of the team. And I got Post-it notes from that going, bam, 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 all this stuff being added. Oh, that's a good point. That's a good point. We're all looking for stories and things to add to what we're doing to make it more real.
Yeah.
To connect with you as our listener. This reminded me, I want to add one last story of why listening is a bad thing. Why not listening is a bad thing. So I'm out grocery shopping on Saturday with my oldest daughter and my 3 youngest kids. That in itself is crazy. We were outnumbered. The 2 adults were outnumbered by the children. She's trying to leave the grocery store, and this man will not leave her alone.
Oh.
This man, who's probably close to my dad's age, would not leave her alone. He kept trying to touch her. He kept trying to offer his phone number. All of these things. 3 women walked past my daughter and walked in a wide circle. She was panicked. She was, you know, like the sweat you get from panicking. She was having trouble breathing. She kept, every time she tried to come away, the guy would grab at her. Not listening. If you are one who is not listening, who is not paying attention, there are people who could die because you are not willing to step up and do those things. So to the women who I am speaking to right now, there are young girls out there who need you to pay attention to them. Because the last thing we want is to see our daughter kidnapped and sold on the sex market.
Yeah.
And you wish somebody who had walked by would have said something or done something. So if listening is not your thing, if listening is not your jam like it is for Maribel and I, contact us. We will help you with this. This is important. It'll save your relationship with your children, your spouse, everyone around you, and maybe somebody else's daughter.
Yep.
Well, that's all we have for you guys this week, and we will talk to you soon. Bye.